In this tutorial we will present a very popular design patterns and well known, the model view controller design pattern. This design pattern I will present you through the new technology focusing on web DIMPRO and also with the classical technology which is on DIMPRO architecture. Okay. Here in this diagram we can see how our application looks like, because we have a model class and this model class interacts with the database through some specific methods, and we can see that the controller is the component controller of the web DIMPRO component and the view are the views. We can see also here that this component uses this component, embeds this component, and also embeds the standard self-VD table, which is like an LV grid. And the component controller is a central controller in web DIMPRO components, and its purpose is to be the central storage of data for all of the views and to enable communication with the model, whatever it might be. In our case it is simple because the model is outside the web DIMPRO component. It is an instance of the class ZCL DPD app mode, and the component controller has it as an attribute. You will see that attribute, and the data model class is a singleton, which means that it can only be instantiated one time. The component controller is the main storage where we can put variables and attributes, and that can be used by views in terms of direct mapping. And the view have context too, and their elements can be mapped with elements of the component controller by simple drag and dropping. This is a general schema with a model, controller and view, but this is the particularity for our application. Here it is a schema that presents the model view controller on these two different technologies, but we can see that the data model is the same also if we are on new technology or in the old technology. It differs just the controller of the classical DIMPRO and the controller for the web DIMPRO component and also the view. This is also a schema with the old DIMPRO, and it is very good structured and object oriented, instead that if you use DIMPRO it is not created like an model, like an object oriented class. And we can see here that in this we have this program, and then we call a static method of this class, and this runs the program. And we can see by the diagram that we use also this class in this main class. In LCL main program we use this standard class, this factory class, and here we see also that we have an aggregation. Okay, but let's go to see something practically. So we have this web DIMPRO component. We can see that here we embed two components. Okay, now we can go to component controller. Here we see that we have defined a tree root node and also a tree node, and a sub-node means that the node contains the collection of nodes of the same type as the mother node, in this case tree node, and this enables dynamic creation of a hierarchy of nodes with an indefinite number of levels. And here we see that we have some attributes. This is the attribute for the model class because we want it to instantiate here in the VD init, and then we will not call this method because it's redundant, and we just take the instance from the attribute which is retained in the component controller, And also this is a singleton, because if we go inside this method we see that if this static attribute is initial, just then we create the object, then we retrieve the existing instance. Here we need to take the child node of the tree, root of the node, and then we call the get tree objects of the model, of the data model class. And here we see that we take the objects, but these objects are created in the constructor of this class, because we instantiate the class in the factory method and we create these objects, and these objects contain the data. Because if we see, we go to this one, we go to this one, we can see that here we load the data, and all the data are stored in objects. And then we loop over these objects into a structure. We create an element for this node, tree node, and then we just bind the element with the element, and then we set the attribute in. This means that we will have an object on every line. And also then we take the child node for the node structure, and we set the static attribute with the data. We can put here a breakpoint and to see how it looks like. We can see if we double click that we have 4 classes, and here we have a tab name, and we loop, we create an element, then we set the element to this node, to the initial lead, and we can see also that load tree object, and if we look into this structure we see that we have some datas, because this object, if we look to the MS node we see the datas, and this data we just need to put it to the tree. Okay, let's go back, and now we can go into the window. Into the window we see how the navigation is created, and we can see that we have the main view. If we go to the main view, here in the main view we see that we have the command tree, and we also have a view container UI element, and in this view container UI element we see that we have this container, and in this container we have put this view, and this view we can see that it has another container, and in this container we have the standard Dimpro component table and also an empty view. And we can see that this outbound plug, it's plugged to the in ALV, and also the empty outbound plug to empty view, it's plugged to the show empty view inbound plug. And if we go to the main view, we can see that this object tree command, it has a node, a tree node type, and this tree node type has a method tree loads children, and it's an efficient method because just when we click on a node, just then we take some data and we populate. We don't populate everything from the beginning, right? Because it's not performance. And also we check here if the element is greater than 0, it means that it is already opened a node, and we just return. This means we go out from this function and we don't execute this business logic, and this business logic we see that we take the sub objects from the subject, and then we loop over the sub objects. And yeah, I think it's better if we put a breakpoint here, and we will see in the code. From example, we click here, and now we are in this method. We see that now we take the attribute. If we go into the special tools, we will see a very nice functionality for the Web Team Pro, where we can see the nodes and the values. If you see, we can see that we have the tree node and the lead selection. We need also to look on the context element, because we will see here the static attributes. Okay, and the instance object is 135. Okay, and now we need to see 130 is the instance 135. Okay, it's the second one, and if we will see, this instance have also some data. Okay, we press F6. Then for this window, for this object, we take the sub objects, and then the sub objects are in this table. We can see that we have two classes, which are the sub objects. Okay, we have also a tab, it's empty. Now we loop over this, and we create an element. We bind the element, and then we set the attribute. We set the object attribute to it. Okay, we take the node, and then we take the lead selection, and onto this element we just set the static attributes with the data, and the data are this one, because these are the data for this object. We can see them here, and we do for all our two datas. We press F8, we go back, and now I will show you that we have also an action, 3-node click. This action, it's when we double click, then we fire an outbound plug, which is for the table, and we will have our table displayed. Let's move to the LV grid view. This looks like our LV grid vid, and if we go to the method, to the VDDoModified view, which is a hook method, and it's called every time we make a round trip. And in the toolbar at button, we see that we pass the view reference, and here we will take the toolbar element from the view. We can see that it is a transparent container. Okay, we remove all the children, and we loop over the buttons, and these buttons we take it from the get command on the MO current MVC model, which is an attribute for this view, and it has this type. And if we go to get comments, we see that it's implemented in the specific class, because it's from the interface. And then we loop over the button, and accordingly to which type the button has, we put a text or we add a button. And for the button we specify that it has this action. First we need to create an action, because if we don't create the action, then we will have a short dump, and the action is created here. We see accordingly to which button was pressed, we go to this business logic. I will present you also right now the business logic, just to finish with this method. And then we make a flow standard layout, and then we add a button to the container. And then also method, it's handling ALV because it comes from the main view to the ALV. It's from the inbound plug. We see the event handler. If we double click, we see that we take some attributes from the current MVC model, the table, the display structure name, the table, the caption, and we also instantiate the ALV component here. We set the data, we pass the node with the data, because here we can see that we populate the node with data, we pass it here, then we take the model and we put also a header for this ALV table. Then we also, with the class CLABAP type descriptor, we describe by name this reference, and we see that we make a downcast from the LV model to the column setting. We delete a column, we take the columns and we loop over them, and accordingly to some properties of the field we make an inputs editable or not. And then we said also that for this table we want the set read only to be false. This means the input fields will be editable. Also, if you look on the toolbar at button, we can see where it is called. Okay, it's in the view. I've showed you this already. Now I think we can go on the button click. This button click method, it's called when the user press some of these three buttons. We go here, and accordingly to the ID, if it's safe, we prepare for save, which means we just take the data from the node, and then we put for the current MVC model user comment, and then if we just put the data from the attribute again to the context, and if it's save, and also if it is the text edit, then we will open the text editor component as a window pop-up, because we see if it has an active component, we create it, and also we take the node for this component, which is this one, and we can take this node because we declared in the properties the usage of this component, and we have bind to our context the node, and then we will pass the data to the second component like this. And with the wizard we create window for component usage, we pass the title, and then we just open it. When we will open this window, we can see here in the text editor view in the doInit method that we need to subscribe to an event, which means that we will have an event into this pop-up, and we take the node, and accordingly to these value nodes we call a function to read the text, and we just put it to our attribute, and then we suppose that we press the OK button to save something. We loop over what we see that we split the text into spaces, and then we put it in this table, we loop over this table, and we append the word to a table, and then we shift the text with 132 places, and then we just call this function module to save the text. So pretty much this was everything. If you have any questions, you can subscribe me on this email address. But before to do this, I will present you in this tutorial also the model view control application, but in the Dimpro. I think Dimpro is familiar for everybody. In this Dimpro we have call screen 100, and if we go to this, we see that we have a module start, and in this module start we run the main program. We can see that this method is called here, and if it is like this, we call and when we start the program, we see that we take the singleton instance, the data model, and then we make a container, then we create a tree, we put this events ID, and for this events ID we need to register them, and we need also to set a handler for them. Then we take the three objects, we loop over them, and we add the data to the nodes. Then we have also this menu request when we make right click on the node, and also on double click we see that we make some business logic also here, and also on the menu select. And also we can see that we have G subscreen Dimpro, because if we go to the start of selection to call screen 100, we see that we have the statement call subscreen including 0 repeat, which means the name of the program, and the G subscreen dinner, and this it cannot be null 0, because if it will be null we will have a runtime error, and because of this we need to take care to fill it before to be called here. From example, we can see that on double click we fill this variable with the number, and also in other places it's filled like this. Yes, so pretty much this was. I hope you enjoy it and you understand this model view control architecture, and also how it is dividing this classical Dimpro, because here we cannot merge the things, and because you need special handlings for this Dimpro part, because this is the statement for calling a screen, and then from this statement we delegate to a static method to run the program in an object-oriented way. And then also when we make a interaction with the UI elements, we have a method on user command, which is also an event handler, and this then communicates further with the data model class. And this I wanted to show you that it is an event handler for user command of the CL GUI LV grid, and importing the parameter ucom automatically. And this is pretty much the architecture. Thank you very much, and for other questions you can subscribe me here. Have a nice day, bye.